and hopefully that will make these systems more robust.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start with you, Dr. LeCun. I have proposed the Algorithm Accountability Act that would require that companies test their AI for harmful bias, such as biases that can affect where you buy a house or what health care you have access to. Now, reviewing your testimony, Dr. LeCun, you stress commitment to privacy, transparency, and mitigating bias, all important values. It's important to me also that there not be an uneven playing field that advantages the companies cutting corners over companies that do the right thing. Could your company support this legislation?
Senator, this is a very important question. I really thank you for raising this point. I'm not familiar with the details of the legislation in question. Certainly, in the basic principles, they align with my personal thinking and those of Meta. And I'll be happy to put you in touch with the relevant people within the company who take care of legislation.
Hearing you agree with the principles is a good way to start. We'll follow up. Now, the use of AI by the U.S. intelligence community raises many issues, starting with accountability. Now, if AI is going to inform the intelligence community's surveillance decisions, one question I would have is if an American is spied on in violation of the law, who is responsible?
Senator, but again, this goes very much outside of my expertise, not being a lawyer or legislator. Privacy and security, safety are on top of our list in terms of priorities. There are very good principles to follow. We try to follow them as much as we can. I think an important point to realize as it relates to current AI technology, such as large language models, they're trained on public data, publicly available data, not on private user data. So there's no possibility of any kind of privacy invasion from that.
Let me ask it this way. Your testimony stresses the importance of accountability in the private sector for its use of AI. How might these principles apply to the government?
Senator, I think the White House commitments, voluntary commitments, are a good start to specify guidelines according to which the AI industry should conform, including questions related to your point.
So what was it about the guidelines, in your view, that are responsive to my question about how this accountability in the private sector, the principles would apply to government?
Senator, again, this is very much outside of my expertise, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with the relevant people.
Let me move on then. Dr. Jensen, your testimony describes the need for intelligence analysts who understand that the AI that's informing their analysis. Now, I don't know how realistic it is to add advanced computer science expertise to the job requirements of intelligence analysts. It seems to me, though, you're raising a very important issue. What are the consequences of disseminating intelligence analysis derived from processes that nobody understands?
You hit the nail on the head, Senator. And I think it's less about making sure every analyst has a PhD in computer science. We can't afford that, no offense, Meta. But what we can do is make sure they understand the basics of reasoning, causal inference. Like sometimes we throw around the term critical thinking as a blanket statement, but almost going back to like, how would Aristotle teach Alexander the Great to interpret a model? I know that's a weird thought experiment, but think about that. Would that be a square of syllogism? Would it be about the logic? Would it be about contradictions? I think it's realistic that we can go back to some basic philosophical reasoning and not necessarily have to have high degrees of computational understanding. And I think by doing that, you start to you hone the ability of the person to ask a question. And as you all know, asking the great question is what produces real dialogue.
So as a general proposition, who would be accountable when the intelligence analysis turns out to be wrong?
This is a great question, and it actually dovetails with the question you were just asking. I'm going to summon my inner Senator King and say you still need one throat to choke, right? So that means ultimately you have to have people accountable in terms of how they certify the assurance of their AI model. And that means just like we had to struggle with this in the financial sector, you're going to have entirely new positions created on how people certify the actual model, and does the model address a certain set of data, a certain set of questions, and back to what Senator Rubio was talking about, even assign confidence levels to that. And I don't think we can even imagine what that's going to look like in 5 years, but I can tell you it's going to be a growth industry and an important one.
My time has expired.
Thank you, Senator Wyden. Senator Cornyn.